Hello, friends, and welcome to summer at St. Andrew. It is my privilege to welcome you here today from the beautiful St. Andrew Sanctuary. I am grateful, as always, to share this sacred online space with you, where we are all invited, included, and valued as vital and beloved members of our broader worshiping community. St. Andrew is proud to be an open, affirming, inclusive congregation that welcomes all people into the full life and communion of our church. This includes saints and sinners, believers and skeptics, the lost and the found, the wanderers and the wanderers, families of all shapes and sizes, and people from every point along life's journey. No matter who you are or where you've been, no matter what you believe or even if you believe anything at all, you are welcome here and you belong here. If you have any questions about our church, prayer requests for our care team, or if you would like to get in touch with a member of our pastoral team or staff, please email info@gostandrew.com. If you would like to explore deeper engagement with the St. Andrew community through our many classes, group life gatherings, service opportunities, and a host of summer events, you can visit our website or email us directly at connect@gostandrew.com. We'd love to hear from you. Just as a reminder, our full Sunday morning worship services, complete with music, prayer, announcements, liturgy, ministry spotlights, and the sermon, are live streamed on our YouTube page each week and permanently archived for viewing anytime. Lastly, to contribute a financial gift to the work and ministry of St. Andrew, you can always visit gostandrew.com/give or text St. Andrew to 28950. And now let's listen together to this week's scripture and sermon.
When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up in the mountain, and he sat down. The disciples came to him, and he began to speak and taught them, saying, "Blessed are the pure in the heart, for they will see God." Jesus said, "Let the children come to me, and do not stop them, for it is such as these that the kingdom of heaven belongs."
I have dropped a substantial amount of money on stuffed animals since having children. Well, mostly since Ruby came along. Sure, I've had one or two favorite teddy bears as a kid, but none that had outfits. You may have noticed there is quite a market out there now for stuffed animals, or loveys as we call them in our house, because these days loveys are marketed as more than a product on a shelf filled with material. They are branded from the beginning to be part of the family. Things that you name, dress, commit to, and come close to requiring something of a background check before you can even leave the store with them in their own version of a tiny house. My friends, we have far surpassed the days of Care Bears and Cabbage Patch Kids. It's no longer picking a doll or animal from a shelf, but a curated experience where kids choose an animal of choice, assemble it, and tailor to their own preference, including various scents and sounds. At one particular store, your kid can pick a special red satin shiny heart just for their teddy bear or animal, and then they are invited to kiss the heart and put their love in the heart and tuck it inside their bear or animal and watch it fill with love. As part of the process, before the sewing, there's a special ritual involved where words are exchanged between the kids and the worker pumping the stuffing in, where the kids make a commitment to love and care for their new friend for all times. Now, even with all the cost and fanfare, I must admit it's kind of a magical moment, and I have been known to get a little teary seeing kids in their pure joy and wonder, committing to loving and caring for this thing that they have created, reciting the words back to the store employee. They are so earnest and sincere, promising with their whole hearts, and they mean it, that they will love and care for these things that they have created. This week in our sermon series, we are on our fourth beatitude. When I hear, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God," I think of kids, and pretty much only kids. Well, except for maybe Mr. Rogers and my Sunday school teacher, Miss Scott. Not to leave out the rest of us, but kids can go there in a way that is often harder for adults, which isn't to say that we can't relearn how to be pure in heart. We can. Kids just tend to believe and love and feel without pretense and all the other stuff that holds us adults back. Younger kids, especially those who have not been exposed to violence, trauma, or major life disruptions, kind of walk around with their whole heart outside of their bodies until about age 8. And often their wholeheartedness comes out of their mouths uncensored. It's a beautiful thing. It can kind of make us adults squirm, though. I have watched countless parents try to wrangle kids in church into being quiet or to sit still, only to hear the most precious of voices pipe up at just the right time with a, "I'm talking to God." I think one of my favorite times was at a funeral, at a graveside service actually, when a little girl was picking up dandelions and blowing them everywhere. I could see her out of the corner of my eye. It was her great-grandfather that we were burying that day. She was maybe 4. She was so happy while everyone else was barely holding it together. I heard her dad quietly pleading with her to stop while we were waiting for the casket to be lowered. And she said, "I'm just trying to blow them high enough to Poppy in heaven so he remembers that I love him." Pure in heart, that one. Storyteller and musician Curtis Lampkin wrote, "Believing is all a child does for a living." And it is really all that is necessary. Simply being present to the wonder all around them, noticing life. Jesus was clear. "Let the little children come to me." Don't stop them or stand in their way. Children not only had a special place in the heart of Jesus, but I think they often teach us the most about him with their hearts. One of Jesus's favorite visual aids was children. Every time the disciples got into mental gymnastics and head games, Jesus pointed to the children. Basically, the rest of us, Jesus was saying, "Come with the mind and heart of a child," or what Zen Buddhists would call a beginner's mind. "And you will see me and know love," Jesus said. In one of her sermons, Barbara Brown Taylor tells how when she was little, she liked to stand on her head. She was a short child, and everything in the world seemed so tall and boring to her. But she found that by standing on her head, she could liven things up. Grass hung in front of her eyes like a green fringe. Trees grew down, not up. The sky was a blue lawn that went on forever. Her swing set was no longer an A, but a V. And at any moment, her house seemed in danger of falling off the yard. She liked standing on her head because she could see things in a new way. And even more because in a world where trees grew down and houses might fall up, anything seemed possible. She suggests that perhaps Jesus should have asked his disciples to stand on their heads while he taught them about the Beatitudes, because that's exactly what he did. He turned the world upside down as they knew it. Up was now down, and down was now up. Out was now in, and in was now out. Front was now back, and back was now front. Blessed are the upside down. You see, as followers of Jesus, we see life through 2 frames of reference. First, we see what everybody else sees, the world of human history. We see a world where might makes right and the victor go to the spoils. We see a world that pronounces the benediction over the wealthy and the powerful, over the self-assured and the self-sufficient, over the pure and the perfect, over the strong and the assertive. That's the first frame of reference we see. We see what everybody else sees. But those who follow Jesus also have a second frame of reference. We see what others do not see. And what we see through this second frame is a reversal, which is a true blessing and joy to be found close to the heart of God. Blessed are the pure in heart is a beatitude that often gets lost in translation, literally. One translation of the Greek text reads, "Blessed are the clean of heart." Now, to be fair, there are slight variations between pure and clean, which are not incorrect translations of the Greek word katharos, but those are more literal translations, which leaves this text kind of flat and prescriptive. The word katharos in Greek also means to be one thing, whole, with nothing else mixed in. A more contemporary translation of the Greek reads this way: "Blessed are the wholehearted, for they shall see God." Picasso once said that artists are those who long to still see with the eyes of children. Artists try to capture it, and adults long for it, but something happens as we journey into the world. We stop living with our whole hearts. We forget and we become distracted. Schedules get overly complicated, and we find ourselves competing with the ways of the world, so focused on how it all looks and what we will achieve. We listen to our watches telling us if we have met our goals, rather than measure our success in how well we have listened to our children, our spouses, our bodies. Sure, it can be hard to go back, to be vulnerable, to ask your soul to remember, to be curious and open to God and see like a child. That feels perhaps too simplistic, maybe. But I would invite you to try it just for a day, to see what emerges for you. Be playful. Open your heart a little wider. Be vulnerable. Do the hokey pokey. Put your whole self in, your whole heart in. And who knows what might happen, where the divine might break through. Now, as we have discussed before in the sermon series up to this point, the Beatitudes are not a straightforward description of cause and effect. If you do X, then Y will follow. These are not techniques telling us how to obtain a blessing by applying this transactional formula or a Simon Says set up by Jesus trying to trick us. The Beatitudes are instead meant to hold us up through life, bringing the presence of God, the kingdom of God, into this very moment. Let's recall for a second the context in which Jesus was speaking. Jesus was a Jew, and for his first century Jewish listeners, the word pure would have undoubtedly conjured up very specific images of ceremonial cleanliness and proper high holy ritual observances. It's important to note here that Israel saw itself as a set-apart nation, and purity was part of what preserved its status. Think about how much of the first 5 books of the Old Testament, or the Torah, is dedicated to the instruction on preserving purity, from what to eat to what to wear and the correct fibers for clothing to cleanliness and animal sacrifice. Purity was a big deal for first century Israel and the Pharisees, the religious authority of the day. They even devised purity codes and an entire system to measure how pure people were. Purity and faithfulness were thought to go hand in hand. And true confession here, that wasn't just true in ancient Israel, but also in Spartanburg, South Carolina. Cleanliness was next to godliness, was found on many a cross stitch hanging in every bathroom, I'm pretty sure, in my house growing up. I wish I would have known then what I know now, though, and I would have played a lot more in the mud on those summer nights and probably could have avoided a bath or two. Ryan Duck points out, at the time in which Jesus was teaching and sharing the lesson of the Beatitudes, it was a time in history in which the Jewish people were living under Roman occupation while in exile. Among the Jews, there were a variety of different understandings of what it meant to be faithful to God. The Pharisees' response was to ramp up their devotion to the law and focus on purity. In fact, they got upset if certain rituals such as hand washing or proper Sabbath observances weren't done correctly. But Jesus challenged their purity laws, speaking and said, on matters of love and truth, mercy and justice, matters close to the heart. In this first century world, the heart was considered the region of thought, intention, and moral disposition, the core of one's being. Jesus wasn't concerned with all the rituals around purity, but really with the heart of the matter, which was maddening to the religious authorities. So it's important to note here that when Jesus said, "Blessed are the pure in heart," he wasn't asking for perfection or adherence to some external moral purity code, but to one's heart and intention to be aligned with the love of God. Now, I want to spend just a little bit of time here with the concept of a pure heart and purity in general. There's a lot of shame and harm that often gets mixed in with and layered on to the concept of purity. That's not accurate and frankly just bad theology. Again, this is where the Greek translation can be helpful. Pure in heart is, in essence, speaking to the whole, as in substance, as in wholehearted, complete, not some whittled down, sanitized, smaller version of who God created us to be. Now, there will be some who, if given the opportunity, would say that this passage comes down to simply this: the order of things. First, you purify the heart, then you will see God. But I think that misses the entire context of the countercultural, upside-down nature of the Beatitudes. Seeing God isn't the reward that comes out of a great big vending machine. Seeing God isn't a reward for being pure. It's an outcome of simply being present to the wonder of our lives, present to the goodness of God all around us, already there in the present moment, like the air we breathe, the light we see, the people all around us, what's deep within us, already in each one of us, and has been since the very beginning. Seeing God comes from paying attention. Our kids know this because they are living and loving with their whole hearts, naturally, without any pretense. This week, we had Vacation Bible Camp. And for the past 3 weeks, our youth have taken service trips to Wyoming, Montana, and Bullis. I've had the gift of listening to them talk about their experiences in these places. And in preparation for the sermon today, I asked a few of them if they had seen God in these places. Here's what they've said. I've seen God in people when they use their gifts to help others, especially troubled teens. I saw God in the bears at the zoo who were playing together. I saw God in my friend who helped me untangle a knot. I saw God in someone who used to be homeless, who now helps other youth not end up on the street. I saw God in Alex, who's 80, and works with his body to dig trenches. I saw God in apple trees and worms. One kid said, I've seen God a lot at church and in the fellowship hall and in my dreams. Another one said, I see God all the time in the air. And one said, I see God in light because God looks like light to me. Their words reminded me of a project started at Boston College back in 2019, which culminated in the children's book, Drawing God. The now virtual museum is a curated collection from kids across the country and around the world on how they imagine God and what God looks like and feels like and where they have seen God. These are powerful reminders of how we all see God differently and how present God is to the pure in heart, really to all of us if we just notice. In closing, here are a few of my personal favorites of where they have seen God. See this heart, one said. This is God. God will always love you back. Another one said, this is a drawing of a pencil because God is always drawing on us. Another one said, I drew a picture of me. This is what God looks like because I look like God. Another image was of a heart. That one said, we live inside God's heart, but God also lives inside of our heart. These are beautiful images. For most of us adults, it is a long journey from our heads to our hearts, but it's a journey that's possible for us to make. As Rachel Naomi Remen, physician, therapist, and author of Kitchen Table Wisdom once wrote, wholeness is never lost. It's only forgotten. My friends, Jesus invites us again and again to come back, to remember, to take on a beginner's mind, to love God with our whole hearts, to see God by being present in our life, and to recover the wisdom that believing is not just a conclusion or something to achieve, but a way of living, a way into the vitality that waits in everything if we are open to it. Our takeaways for today are this. The longest journey is often from our head to our heart. When we are our most playful selves, God can finally get serious with us. And finally, believing with a beginner's mind and a whole heart deepens our faith and opens us to see and experience God in unexpected and new ways. May it be so. Amen.